Hey YouTube, on top of Great League Fossil Cup, we have Open Great League. So Great League Open rankings on the screen. Basically, there's only one. So there's one thing that changed that kind of changed the everything else on this list, right? So the big one is Carbink, XL Pokemon. It is a Rock and Fairy type Pokemon. So I have seen in the remix, I've seen someone run Grassol with Carbink instead of Bastiodon, and it is much better. It seems to be tankier, but it's not even the tank. It's not having that. Replacing the steel typing with fairy typing makes it much harder to deal with, because you just neutralize fighters, right? So fighters only go neutral because of the rock. So what you're going to see here on this list is you see a bump in a lot of Pokemon that are ground or can kind of deal with Carbink, right? So you have the normal ones, like Swampert's always going to be strong on this list. You have Quags here, which is up on this list, which has been strong since the Mudbob buff. But then you have like Shadow Machamp all the way up to number 11, which seems quite high for Shadow Machamp just in this meta, right? Because there's a lot of things that can beat you in this meta if you're a Shadow Machamp, but it wasn't as high before, but it's higher now because you can just, you still actually lose that matchup, but you can just go counter cross chop, resist the rock throws. If you show up Moonblast and have that energy advantage, you're going to beat that, right? So, and because there's also all the steals, Registeel and Stunfisk, which are always so high, especially as an answer to Carbink, which means more Swamperts and stuff like that, you do well against those in neutral matchups. So that is why Machamp kind of went up on the board. Otherwise, it's kind of mostly the same, right? You have your Lantern, your Noctowl kind of got lowered just because everything else kind of shot up, right? Carbink, Registeel, Stunfisk, all going to cause problems for the Owl. So that's why it kind of went down a little bit, not a ton though. So it's sort of a weird one. I don't think that you need to change your strategy too much. And I'm going to go over 5 teams here that were my best 5 teams on the season so far. I don't think you need to change your strategy too much. For me, like, I know they comment, I don't have the team, but like Noctowl, Lantern, Metachamp is a pretty common team, and that honestly probably works fine in this meta, right? I wouldn't go around shifting your team too much just based on Carbink is my suggestion. And let's look at 5 teams that I used earlier in the season to see how they went. The first one is I was gonna swear there. Ignore Carbink. This is an anti-Metachamp team, and Metachamp was everywhere. And it's still going to be everywhere, because if the steals are increasing, you do well against Swampert, you do well against Machamp that's coming up, right? The Owl's a little less around because everyone's scared of Carbink, right? So anti-Metachamp team, Tapu Fini, Sableye, Trevenant. You have double sort of claw using. The only sort of weakness is like normal typing in the back, like a Lickitung or something like that would be a little tricky because you are resisted claws there as the only sort of drawback to this team. But 3 answers to Metachamp, which is on a lot of teams. I would Sableye as a safe swap. Try and draw out the Owl. So the Owl's any normal typing, right? Noctowl, dunsparce to a certain extent. Yeah, Lickitung. So those are all sort of issues for the back. So you don't need to run a triple anti-Metachamp team, but if you have like a Tapu Fini or another Fairy, I think Tapu Fini is best just as a water type Pokemon. But you don't have to use Tapu. You can use like Clefable or another Fairy in the front. And then Sableye, I think, is better than Trevenant at this point. I think Sableye is just still one of the best right now. So 2 answers to Metachamp, and then you can add in the Trevenant as a third, or you can just go another thing for balance. If you want something for balanced, depends what you use. If you actually use Tapu in the front with Sableye, I use Trevenant because you also kind of resist the grass. That would be an issue for Tapu. And electric, right? That is why. So that's why I use Trevenant, because you're going to be weak to grass, and you're going to be weak to electric. You're also weak to poison, so you might want another answer to poison as well. You don't seem to have a fighting weakness anywhere, so you could add a steel in instead of Trevenant, but that just kind of leaves you a little more vulnerable to Metachamp. But you gotta do what you gotta do. Meganium, I said, was one of the most underrated Pokemon I've used this season. It's just so strong in neutral situations, and it gets a shield advantage. It can just ramp up. Like, obviously you have to, Flyers is just whatever, you're gonna lose to Flyers, But outside of flyers, like you do so well. Even poisons that do super effective against you, you can hit with them super effective for the earthquake. So Meganium has been one of my go-to this season. I think it's very, very, very strong. Balanced team, sort of like, again, weak to flyer, which is those are your dugong cover. Weak to poison, so you have your own poison in it. That's kind of not an amazing answer, but it's an answer. And then weak to fire. So that's why Toxapex is there, kind of to deal with that. Toxapex, Dugong, pretty tanky. Dugong, great save swap. Drone is obviously giving it nice coverage. So that would do that. And in terms of card bank, super effective with the Frenzy. Have a Droran, which will do well, although you're weak to rock there, and then poison. It's half fairy, so you're doing neutral there. The rock fairy typing is so unique. So unique. This was my meta team that I went like I think 10-0 with early in the season. Octowl, Sableye, Registeel. It's not unique. It's cover Registeel's weak to fighting and ground. Cover that with Noctowl, Sableye, save swap. It's meta. It worked. Carving's gonna be your toughest on the lead. You'd have to go Sableye. You can go Reggie, but they probably may have an answer to a Steel, because Steel's like one of the only toughest answers to Carving. So you might have to come Sableye. But then you don't really have anything to throw. Again, I keep mentioning Carbink. You don't need to build for Carbink. Like, this is one of the teams, for me personally, that I would use and just take the losses with Carbink. Like, you can come to Registeel, but they probably have an answer to Steel, and you're probably just going to lose. This is one of the teams where I'm like, if I see a Carbink, I lose. To otherwise have full coverage against the meta otherwise, right? A bit weak to Quagsire, but like they have to hit you with a Stone Edge, and it's going to take multiple Stone Edges to take out the Owl anyways, and Sableye does okay with the Claws and Foul Plays, right? So super meta team, kind of coverage all around. Take a loss here and there. So this one, I actually like this one. I like all of them. I won't show you the ones I don't like. Swampert, I think Swampert's going to be one of the best in this meta right now. With all the steals and Carbink, and then doing it's a Lantern, and then doing neutral against Medicham, stuff like that. I think Swampert is going to be on all my like grinding teams, quite honestly. Lickitung has become one of the best save swaps. Lickitung, Sableye back. Noctowl's taken a hit, so those two have come back as a great safe swaps. A little trickier now that everyone has double. I don't know how many people are going to use it. Maybe you'll see an uptick. If you see an uptick in double, I would probably go more Sableye than Lickitung, just because the licks take a while to get to the body slams, and then body slam does not do much against that. Whereas if foul plays and returns probably do a little more. So I'd probably do that. And then Frostlass, again, I have it as nice coverage for like the toughest for Swampert is going to be like some of the flyers, Octowl, Altaria in particular, which is nice in grass, right? And you have that ice coverage for all of those. So that is why. So it's balanced team, cover your grass weakness in there. And then the fifth one is double ice in the back. At least one's half steel, so you're not double weak to rock. But Defense Deoxys usually stay in Psycho Boost. I have Rock Slide, you can run Thunderbolt. Counter Psycho Boost most things off the bat and bail into Walrein. Walrein's still a really, really good save swap. Even if you get met with a fighter, you're still can like Icicle Spear have the buff this season. Earthquake does well. And then Sandslash, and then punish that fighter with Defense Deoxys, because you don't want, you're double weak to fighting. Sandslash is double weak to fighting, so you really want to try and draw out the fighter, like a Medicham or something, with Walrein. And then Defense Deoxys should beat that, and then you can have your Sandslash roam a little more free in the back. So that is it. In terms of what I'm going to be focusing on, if I'm building teams now, like I have been using double for I guess the last couple days now in the remix, and it is very strong. But if I'm focusing on teams here, I'm probably going to run. Honestly, if we're at the point of grinding yellow, which we probably are, because we're like what 5-6 weeks before the final here, I am probably using either a combo of these 6 Pokemon: Registeel or Stunfisk, interchangeable there, Swampert, Medicham, Lickitung or Sableye, which I think are interchangeable, Lantern, and then either Quag or Double. That's my 6. Like in terms of like what is on the front page here. Let me see if there's anything else outside of the top 20 that I think are like my go-to grinds. Because right now it's those. A lot of people have been liking AC Sandslash. AC Sandslash is just a little tricky because you're double weak to fighting and fire, but there's not a ton of fire, but double weak to fighting, there is a lot of meta champ stuff, so it's really, really tough to use Sandslash. Especially now that everyone has double kick, double, which would resist the claws too. So you are just like really in trouble there. So I'm not sold on Sandslash right now. Cress, I think a lot more people use Cress. Again, a lot of people say they don't have Grassland Cresselia, which is fine. But there's no other Pokemon on this outside here that is like, yes, I'm going to use this to grind. Like I said, Meganium's quite good. And if Carbink, actually, I'm gonna add Meganium to this list only because I think Carbink is going to scare off more people than it should. I really think Carbink is going to scare off a lot of flyers, which means Meganium's going to run even more wild in a Steel, which you can throw over Earthquake, or a Water meta, right, with Swampert and the Mud Boys. And neutral situations, it does great too. So I think add Meganium to the list, and then like I said, 1 Steel and Registeel or Stunfisk, 1 Mudboy and Swampert or Quagsire, a fighter, mostly Machamp. You can substitute double, but mostly Machamp, and then a Safe Swap in Lickitung and Sableye, and then Lantern just as your sort of all-around answer to flyers and just neutral in most other situations. Very weak to grass. I mentioned a lot of things that are very weak to grass, but between like Medicham with Ice Punch, a Steel, a neutral situation like Sableye or Lickitung, you can deal with grass on those, combo those. So that's my suggestion, but you do you. Some people don't like to go meta. If I'm trying to grind, I go meta. Like earlier in the season, I'm just rambling at this point. Earlier in the season, you've seen me test out new Pokemon, test out all these buff moves, test out nerf moves, just to kind of see and feel. But now, like if we're gonna grind, we're gonna grind with meta. Quite honestly, there's very, very few people who can actually go pure like 3 spice. There's some people who go like 1 spice and 2 strong to get to meta. But I'm just gonna go straight meta. Quite honestly. Anyways, maybe I'll sneak in a Ninetales or Togedemaru in the ending there. But that is it. Let me know. I'm assuming most people will play Great League instead of Fossil Cup, but let me know in the comments below what you're playing, and if there's like another Pokemon that you think like, this is the Pokemon I always use to grind to Legend, and it is underrated and you should use it. So let me know in the comments below if I'm missing something. Anyways, that's it. Appreciate watching. See you guys in the next one.